Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We spent a lot of time on this show trying to understand the world as it is today. The politics, the technology, the culture, what's coming next. But every now and then, the source material you send us, it forces us to stop and just look at the ground beneath our feet and realize that the history of this planet is, it's stranger than any fiction we could possibly invent.
It really is. I was reading through the stack for this deep dive, and I kept thinking, if you pitch this as a screenplay to Hollywood,
Right.
a world of, peaceful slime suddenly turning into this world of armored monsters, and all in a geological heartbeat, they tell you the pacing was too fast.
They'd say it was unrealistic. Exactly.
Yeah, no one would buy it.
We are, for all intents and purposes, traveling to another planet today. We don't need a spaceship. We just need to rewind the clock.
What? We're about 538 million years?
Roughly.
Yeah.
We are talking about the Cambrian Explosion. And I want to be clear right off the bat, this isn't just a history lesson about old rocks. This is the origin story of, well, everything, us included.
It really is the Big Bang of biology. It's the moment the lights turned on. Before this, Earth was a very different, very quiet place. After this moment, it was loud, dangerous, and recognizable.
So the mission for today is to really unpack this event. We need to figure out why, after billions of years of microbial boredom, life suddenly decided to get complex.
To get big.
To get big and get dangerous.
Yeah.
We're going to meet some creatures that look like hallucinations, and we're going to tackle a mystery that literally kept Charles Darwin awake at night.
Darwin's dilemma. It's a perfect place to start because it frames the stakes of this whole discussion. This wasn't just a curiosity for him. It was a genuine threat to his entire life's work.
Okay, so let's set the scene.
Yeah.
It's 1859. Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species. He proposes this really elegant theory of natural selection evolution by these, creeping incremental changes over vast stretches of time. Use that phrase, natura non facit saltum.
Nature does not jump. That was his mantra. He really viewed life as a ramp.
A smooth, gradual ascent.
Exactly. From simple to complex, you start with a single cell, you get a little cluster of cells, a simple worm, and so on and so on. But when he looked at the geological record, the rocks they had back then, which they called the Silurian, but we now know as the Cambrian, he just hit a brick wall.
He didn't see a ramp, he saw a cliff.
A cliff, a fully formed ecosystem. He saw trilobites. And if you've ever seen a trilobite, even just a picture, these aren't simple blobs.
Not at all.
They have complex segmented bodies. They have this calcified armor. They have intricate eyes, compound eyes like a fly's, and they just appear.
Boom.
Boom. In the lowest layers of rock, they are there. Thousands of them. And below those layers, nothing.
No ancestors.
Oh.
No half-trilobites.
Zero. It's like walking into a mechanic's shop expecting to see nuts and bolts and half-finished frames.
And instead you find a pristine, fully operational Ferrari just sitting in the middle of an empty room.
That is the perfect analogy. And Darwin knew how damaging this was. He devoted a whole section of his book to what he called the imperfection of the geological record. He basically argued, look, the ancestors must be there.
We just haven't found them.
We just haven't found them yet. The fossil record is like a book where most of the pages have been ripped out. We're just missing the earlier chapters.
He was banking on future discovery. The truth is out there, essentially. He believed that the Precambrian seas must have been swarming with life, but for whatever reason, they just weren't preserved.
Exactly. So that leads us to the core question of this deep dive. Was Darwin right? Was the explosion just an illusion, just missing pages? Or did biology actually go nuclear 538 million years ago? Did nature, in fact, jump?
To answer that, we have to look at the before picture. We have to go back further than the Cambrian to a time period Darwin didn't even know existed, the Ediacaran.
The Ediacaran. This is roughly 580 to 543 million years ago.
And looking at the research here, the whole vibe of the Ediacaran is, well, it's distinct, it's alien.
So if I hop in my time machine and go for a swim in the Ediacaran Ocean, what am I seeing? Am I in danger? Am I fighting off sharks?
You are likely the most dangerous thing in that water, by far. The Ediacaran Ocean is often called the Garden of Ediagara. It was peaceful.
The Garden of Ediacaran?
Yeah. There were no predators, no jaws, no claws. There was no need to run and no need to hide. The descriptions in the papers are fascinating. They talk about range of morphs. Can you visualize that for us?
Sure. Imagine a fern frond, or maybe a quilted air mattress. Now imagine it's alive, but it doesn't have a mouth, it doesn't have a gut, no eyes. It's just this fractal, self-similar shape lying on the seafloor.
Wave fractal. Meaning the pattern repeats itself as you zoom in?
Exactly. It's a very specific modular way of building a body that we just don't see anymore. These creatures, like Dickinsonia, which looked like a flat, oval bath mat, maybe up to a meter long, they were likely osmotrophs.
Osmotrophs. Okay, that's a great word. Let's unpack that.
It just means they absorb nutrients directly through their skin.
So they're just lying there.
Just lying there on the seafloor, soaking up organic carbon from the water or from the microbial mats right underneath them. It was a slow, quiet, two-dimensional world. Life was mostly flat because that's the best way to maximize your surface area for absorption. If you don't have a gut to digest food inside you, you have to do it on your surface.
Sounds kind of pleasant, actually. A world of living pillows just soaking up soup.
Pretty much.
But you mentioned microbial mats. I feel like we breeze past this concept in school, that the substrate, the literal ground, was different then.
Oh, this is crucial. Today, if you go to the beach and step in the water, the sand is loose, right? You sink in a bit. That's because for 500 million years, worms and crabs have been churning it all up. Right. But in the Ediacaran, the seafloor was sealed. It was covered by this thick, leathery skin of bacteria and algae. It was firm.
The mat grounds. It sounds like a sci-fi terrain.
It essentially was. And these mats stabilized the sediment. They prevented oxygen from getting deep into the mud. So the bottom of the ocean was this sharp divide. You had oxygenated water above and toxic, anoxic, sulfurous mud below. And all the Ediacaran creatures sat right on top of that barrier, on the skin of the world.
But the fuse was already burning, right? It wasn't completely static. The notes mention a creature called Kimberella.
Ah, Kimberella, the herald of doom, in a way.
Doom for the pillows.
For the pillows, yes. Kimberella is distinct from the fronds. It looks a bit like a slug, maybe a mollusk. It had a foot. And more importantly, we find it associated with these scratch marks on the mat surface.
Scratch marks. So it wasn't just absorbing, it was scraping.
It was grazing, it was actively feeding, it was moving with intent. And it was bilateral. It had a left side and a right side, a front and a back. This is the blueprint for almost all complex animals today. Kimberella suggests that the animal revolution, the revolution of moving and eating and interacting, was already starting to bubble up beneath the peaceful surface of the garden.
So you have these quiet quilted mattresses and then this one little slug thing dragging itself around, scratching the floor. It's subtle, but it's the beginning of the end for that whole world.
And then around 538.8 million years ago, and I just love the precision of modern dating. The garden collapses, the mats are torn up, the pillows vanish, and the monsters arrive.
We enter the Cambrian, and the best place to witness this change, the ground zero for our understanding of this explosion, is a quarry high in the Canadian Rockies, the Burgess Shale.
This is legendary stuff in paleontology. It was discovered by Charles Walcott back in 1909. The story goes his horse stumbled on a rock.
That's the myth. I prefer to believe the horse was a geologist.
Likely Walcott was just doing some very good field work. But what he found was a Lagerstätte.
A what?
Lagerstätte. It's a German word. It means storage place. And it refers to a fossil site with just exceptional preservation. Usually, fossilization is heavily biased. Bones, teeth, shells, the hard stuff lasts. Soft, squishy bits rot away in days. But in the Burgess Shale, because of a unique set of underwater mudslides and low oxygen chemistry, we got snapshots of the entire animal.
The whole thing.
Eyes, guts, antenna, delicate little legs. We can even sometimes see the contents of their last meal.
Which is so lucky because, as we're about to discuss, the creatures of the Cambrian were weird. And if we only had their shells, we'd have no idea how weird. We might just think they were clams or something.
You're so right. Walcott, the guy who discovered it, he actually missed the weirdness at first. He was a man of his time. He tried to shoehorn all these bizarre fossils into modern categories.
Right, force them into boxes that already exist.
Exactly. He saw a weird shrimp thing and said, okay, that's an annelid worm. He saw a swimming jelly thing and said, that's a sea cucumber. He was trying to force square pegs into round holes because he just assumed that ancient life should fit into our modern boxes.
It wasn't until the 1970s with Harry Whittington and his team at Cambridge that we realized the square pegs were actually like hyperdimensional polygons.
That's a great way to put it. They reopened the files. Whittington, along with his graduate students Derek Briggs and Simon Conway Morris, they started meticulously dissecting these fossils again. And they realized Walcott was wrong. These weren't just simple ancestors of living things. These were weird experimental designs that don't fit anywhere in our modern rulebook.
Okay, let's talk about the mascot of this weirdness, Opabenia. I feel like Opabinia needs its own fan club.
Opabinia regalis. It really is the poster child for evolution is drunk. No, seriously. Whittington presented his reconstruction of this animal at a scientific conference in Oxford in the mid-70s, and the entire room, full of distinguished paleontologists, they burst out laughing.
They thought he was pranking them.
They thought it was a joke. It looked like a Dr. Seuss drawing or something a child would invent. So imagine a creature about 3 inches long, segmented body, swimming lobes along the side. So far, so normal. But the head.
The head is where it all goes off the rails.
It had 5 eyes. 5 mushroom-shaped eyes on stalks, 2 pairs on the side, 1 in the middle. It had 360-degree vision. It could look everywhere at once.
And the snout?
It wasn't a snout. It was a nozzle. A long, flexible proboscis, like a vacuum cleaner hose, sticking out the front. And at the very tip of that hose, a claw. A pair of grasping jaws.
So it's driving around with 5 eyes looking in every direction, and it uses a face hose with a claw to grab food and pass it backwards to its mouth, which is located under its head.
That is correct. And the question became, what is it? Is it an arthropod? A worm? It just broke the taxonomy. It didn't have the jointed legs of an arthropod, but it had the eyes. It was a mosaic. Stephen Jay Gould called this disparity.
Clarify that distinction for me. Diversity versus disparity. That seems like an important nuance.
It's a key insight. Diversity is having lots of species, like, 100 different types of beetles. They're all variations on a theme. They all basically look like beetles. Disparity is having lots of different themes, different fundamental body plans. The Burgess Shale shows us that the Cambrian had incredibly high disparity. Life was experimenting with its basic architecture in a way it never has since. It was the R&D phase of life on Earth. Just throw everything at the wall, see what sticks.
And some of the things that stuck were terrifying. We have to talk about Anomalocurus.
The strange shrimp. This is a classic story of paleontology puzzle solving. For decades, this animal was actually 3 different animals. Walcott found a fossil that looked like a shrimp tail. Another scientist found a fossil that looked like a circular pineapple slice, which they thought was a jellyfish.
Okay.
And someone else found this sort of sponge-like body.
And it turned out they were all parts of the same animal.
Yes. Whittington and Briggs realized the shrimp was actually a grasping claw, a big feeder appendage. The jellyfish was the mouth, a circular camera shutter-like maw, and the sponge was the body. And when you put it all together, you get the T-Rex of the Cambrian, a 2-foot-long predator with swimming flaps, giant stalked eyes, and 2 spiky grasping arms in front of a circular crushing mouth.
2 feet long doesn't sound huge to us, but in a world of inch-long worms and half-inch bugs.
It was a leviathan. It was the first apex predator. It would have glided through the water just looking for prey, and its existence changes everything, because if there is a giant hunter swimming around, you can't just be a soft pillow anymore. You need armor.
This leads us perfectly into the why. We've established the before, the Zodiacaran piece, and the after Cambrian chaos. We've met the characters, but why did the switch flip? Why 538 million years ago? Why not 1 billion years ago?
It's the multi-million-dollar question. And as with most things in complex science, looking for a single silver bullet cause is usually a mistake. It was likely a perfect storm of geological, chemical, and biological triggers all colliding at once.
Let's look at the environmental side first. Oxygen. We hear about oxygen a lot in these origin stories.
Oxygen is the fuel of complexity. You can't run a Ferrari on AA batteries. To build a large, complex body, and specifically to build collagen, which is the protein glue that holds animals together, you need high oxygen levels. And we have pretty good evidence that oxygen levels in the ocean rose past a critical threshold right around this time.
So the engine could finally rev up. Without enough oxygen, you're just stuck being small and slow.
Right. It allows for higher metabolic rates, active swimming, hunting, digestion, all that good stuff. But you also need building materials. And that brings us to something called the Great Unconformity.
This is a geological term I love. It sounds like a generic breakup.
Mm-hmm.
It's not you, it's the Great Unconformity.
It really does. It refers to a massive gap in the rock record. There was a period of huge global erosion. The thinking is that tectonic uplift, or maybe the retreat of massive glaciers from the snowball Earth period, was just grinding down continents. This washed gigatons of ions into the ocean, calcium, magnesium, phosphate.
The ocean became a mineral soup.
A mineral soup that was also alkaline. And this matters because if the water is acidic, it's really hard to keep a shell from dissolving. But if the water is saturated with calcium carbonate, biomineralization becomes metabolically cheap. Suddenly, animals could just pull rock out of the water and build armor. They could build skeletons.
So we have the fuel, which is oxygen, and the bricks, which is calcium. But just because you can build a castle doesn't mean you will. You need a motivation, right?
Yeah.
Nature is lazy. It doesn't build a shell unless it needs one.
Exactly. And now enter the biological triggers. The arms race. And specifically, a fascinating theory called the light switch theory by a scientist named Andrew Parker.
This is the one that posits that the evolution of the eye kicked off the explosion.
Pretty much. Think about the Ediacaran again. If you're a predator, but you can only sense things by touch or by smell, the prey can just sit there. You literally have to bump into it to eat it.
A very inefficient way to hunt.
Very. But the moment one animal develops a primitive camera-style eye,
the game is over. The lights turn on.
The predator can see you from across the room. Now, simply existing isn't a survival strategy anymore. You need to hide, you need to run, or you need to be made of stone. This selective pressure forces the prey to evolve hard shells, like the trilobites.
Or to start burrowing.
Exactly. Which then forces the predator to evolve better eyes and crushing jaws, like Anomalocaris.
Oh,
It's a runaway feedback loop.
it makes so much sense. And we actually see this in the fossils, don't we? The notes mention a creature called Cludina.
Yes, Cludina is a tiny, shelly fossil from right at the transition period. And we find them with these perfect little circular holes bored into the side.
Drill holes.
Drill holes. That is the smoking gun of predation. Someone was drilling through the shell to get to the meat inside. The Garden of Ediacara wasn't just replaced, it was eaten.
There's one more trigger I want to touch on, which connects back to the substrate. You called it the agronomic revolution before?
The Cambrian substrate revolution, yeah. Remember those microbial mats? The sealing of the seafloor?
A skin on the world.
Well, when animals started evolving burrowing behaviors, probably to hide from predators or to find food, they destroyed the mats. They churned the mud.
Bioturbation.
Yes. And this did two massive things. One, it oxygenated the sediment, which opened up a whole new 3D world for life to inhabit underground. And two, it released all these nutrients that had been trapped in the mud back into the water column, which fueled plankton blooms, which in turn fed the animals. It was ecosystem engineering on a planetary scale. The worms literally terraformed the Earth.
It's incredible to think that worms just digging holes might be as significant as an asteroid impact in terms of shaping the planet.
Absolutely. They changed the chemistry of the ocean. They changed the physical structure of the seafloor. They created new niches, which allowed for new species. It was a revolution from the bottom up.
So we have the oxygen, the calcium, the eyes, and the worms. It seems like a slam dunk case for a sudden explosion. But, and here's the twist that we promised, there's a growing consensus that maybe the explosion wasn't quite as explosive as it looks.
This brings us right back to Darwin's doubt. Is the explosion real, or is it just that we put on a new pair of glasses?
Glasses being fossilization potential.
Right. Is it the rise of animals or just the rise of fossils? This is the artifact hypothesis.
Because soft things don't fossilize well.
Correct. If the Ediacaran world was full of soft, tiny little worm things, they wouldn't leave fossils. But the moment they evolved shells, because of the calcium surge and the new predators, suddenly they appear in the rock record.
So did the animals just appear, or did they just become visible?
This is where the molecular clock comes in. This is a fascinating bit of forensic science.
It is. It relies on the idea that DNA mutations happen at a roughly constant rate. It's like a metronome. So if you compare the DNA of, say, a human and a fruit fly, and you count the differences and you know the tick rate of the mutations, you can calculate how far back in time our common ancestor lived.
And when they run these clocks, what do they find? They consistently find that the deep divergence, the split between the major animal groups, like the split between us and arthropods, happened way before the Cambrian, maybe 700 or even 800 million years ago.
So the DNA says the animals are old. The rocks say the animals are young.
That's the conflict. And this is usually explained by the long fuse hypothesis. The idea is that the animals were there for hundreds of millions of years, but they were microscopic, or they were soft-bodied larval forms living in the plankton, effectively invisible to the fossil record.
They were there, but they were hiding.
Or they were just very, very small. Then the environmental triggers, the oxygen, the calcium hit, and that fuse hit the powder keg. And they got big and hard, and they did it rapidly.
So it's both. A long, slow buildup of genetic potential, followed by a rapid ecological unleash.
Precisely.